I am a massive fan of tag team wrestling. I'm a massive fan of tag team wrestling when it is done right, with compelling stories, exciting matchups, titles that mean something, and a division that overall feels important and that is needed on the show. Personally, I feel that WWE has really had a disconnect with that for the last few years. Sure, there have been standout matches, such as many of the Usos and the New Day's encounters. The Usos taking on the Wyatt family. The Hardy Boys versus Gallows and Anderson versus The Bar versus Enzo and Cass at WrestleMania 33. If you look down in NXT, matches like American Alpha versus The Revival, DIY again versus The Revival, or even the multi-man match at last year's WrestleMania 35 event. Overall, when tag team wrestling is done right in WWE, it's something amazing, it's something special, and it's something that you want to watch. The division feels important, the titles mean something, and it's compelling professional wrestling. However, I really do feel like the disconnect has been there in WWE for the last number of years, and today I want to go over some of the reasons why tag team wrestling in WWE just kinda sucks, and in what ways it could be better, and in what specific areas it's really lacking. I don't really want to use the word sucks because it doesn't suck. We get some amazing matches there. There's many talented teams, both on the main roster and NXT, although we're more so talking about the main roster here. Just don't get me wrong at all. There are so many incredible teams, amazing talent, and we do get a lot of amazing and compelling tag team wrestling action, but I think it could be a lot better, and I think it should be a lot better.
Here are your winners and the new Tag Team Champions.
Tag team wrestling is just so damn good elsewhere. If you look at various other companies around the globe, it is so damn good. Whether it be in New Japan Pro Wrestling, AEW, Ring of Honor, and various other companies throughout the independent scene, there are just so many compelling and exciting tag teams to watch. There's so much content to consume, and sometimes it's just overall better than WWE. But there are so many different compelling tag teams out there that are not currently signed to WWE. Whether you be a fan of FTR or the Young Bucks or Hangman Page and Kenny Omega in AEW. Maybe you like the Gorillas of Destiny, the Lucha Brothers, Motor City Machine Guns, or even again if we take it back to NXT, teams like Imperium, Undisputed Era, Mustache Mountain. Around the world in other companies and in their own developmental brand, there are so many other talented tag teams that really do get to shine a little bit more than the main roster's Raw and SmackDown tag team divisions. There's just so much content to consume. You don't have to just limit yourself to WWE. Now obviously WWE does wrestle a little bit more of a relaxed style due to the fact that they put on a lot more shows and their wrestlers need to compete a lot more often than some of these independent wrestlers have to, so they put their bodies on their line a little bit more than the contracted ones to WWE that we see week in and week out on Raw and SmackDown. So there are various factors that really go into why tag team wrestling is so good elsewhere. But if you look at several of the Raw and SmackDown tag team championship matches we've had in recent memory and compare it to, I really don't want to bring this one specific matchup, but Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page versus the Young Bucks from one of the recent AEW pay-per-views. It's an amazing match. People are saying it's the greatest tag team wrestling match of all time. You don't have to think that. You can form your own opinion, but it was something incredible. Some people would call that a spot fest. Everyone really enjoys their own type of tag team wrestling, but overall there is just so much good tag team wrestling around the globe, and a lot of it just happens to be better in many people's minds than what we get week in and week out on Raw and SmackDown.
Here are your winners and the new Tag Team Champions.
The Raw and the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, and let's even bring the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship into this. They don't feel important because they're not featured properly. 9 times out of 10 for the pay-per-views, what is on the kickoff show? Either the Raw or the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match. They are not featured properly, and when they are featured, we seem to get a lot of the same matches just over and over and over again. Rinse and repeat, a different finish, lots of 50-50 booking. For instance, right now over on Raw, how many times have we seen the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders? These teams have been facing off countless times. We've just seen it over and over again that it's honestly time for something new. As great as the two teams are, they've had amazing matches. It's just time that we see something new because it's getting very repetitive. The titles need to be featured more prominently and taken more seriously and less in a comedy role. As great as some of the stuff that the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits have been doing, I definitely don't want to drag them down at all because they are two very talented tag teams. But overall, they could certainly be doing more, and just seeing the two teams do what they do best and have amazing tag team matches, but have them featured in a little bit of a different way would be a lot better. Back in the Attitude/Ruthless Aggression eras, the tag team divisions were just featured a lot more prominently. Think about the matches between the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys. Those were insane, and they were featured and taken so seriously and just absolutely prominently given the spotlight that they deserve, rather than forced onto pay-per-view pre-shows or forced into mainly being a comedy title. Because when the tag team championships are really taken seriously, for instance with the Usos and the New Day, when they were having those countless matches just for the right to be the best tag team over on SmackDown Live, it felt important and it was featured properly. We had the first tag team championship Hell in a Cell match, which was just absolutely nuts. I love that match so very much because the titles were featured properly and they really did feel important.
Here are your winners and the new Tag Team Champions.
Tag teams randomly either A, being thrown together, or B, broken up without reason. Now, sometimes this does work. Think about, for instance, The Bar. Nobody really wanted to see them together. Everyone wanted Cesaro to get a singles push and Sheamus, less so to be on his own. I think people were just mostly hyped up about Cesaro. But when the two of them got together and they got their footing, it really did work and they were an amazing tag team. Now, to bring it more recently, Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler, they were just kind of thrown together more so for the Baron Corbin-Roman Reigns feud, but they were also featured in the tag team division and were the champions. It just didn't really make any sense. They were singles guys, and then the next week they were just tag team partners. Or for instance, again, recently, Cedric Alexander and Ricochet. They're just a team for the sake of being a team. It just doesn't really make any sense. There's no reason that they are together, and there's no story behind it, which doesn't really make them feel important. It doesn't make them feel like a valued tag team in the division. Now, of course, the opposite of this is when tag teams are broken up way too soon. Now, I know that they've really fallen off since, but when Enzo and Cass were in WWE, I don't really like talking about them too much because they turned out to be awful, and they're both gone from the company now. But when they were broken up, nobody really wanted to see it. It was too soon. They had so much more potential, and there was a lot more WWE could have done with them. But oftentimes, when WWE has an amazing tag team, they are split up without reason in order to create a singles feud and whatnot whenever they really don't need to be, and they could stay as a tag team for at least another year or so. I'm honestly surprised that the New Day has remained together this long. I honestly thought they would have broken up by now. Another one we can bring up is Eric Rowan and Luke Harper. Whenever the Wyatt family first split up and they went on their own, Bray Wyatt just kind of let them go and they entered the singles division, wrestled for a few months, and then they just ended up back together when they could have stayed a tag team. They didn't need to remain with Bray Wyatt. Maybe we could have gotten the Bludgeon Brothers a few years earlier, or they could have remained with their current gimmick and just wrestled on their own separate from Bray Wyatt if they really wanted to keep him as a single star without a faction behind it. There are just so many times when tag teams are randomly put together without explanation and broken up whenever there's no need to do so, whenever there's not really any prominent plans in place for them in the singles division. It hurts the division, it really does, whenever just random thrown together tag teams are carrying the titles, or ones that should be are broken up without reason.
Here are your winners and the new Tag Team Champions.
The titles and the division are too often sacrificed for main event storylines. Now, sometimes this works. One that I want to bring up from recent memory is Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy. Obviously, Rollins is a main event star. He probably shouldn't be really wrestling in the tag team division too much, unless it makes sense. Him and Buddy Murphy made sense. What didn't make sense is Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman, because it added nothing to their feud. They didn't bring anything different to the division, and it really just did nothing for the titles other than inserting a small reign in there where they held it for maybe a month or two and then dropped it for absolutely no reason. Now, I know you can bring up the fact that I was talking about Hangman Page and Kenny Omega earlier in AEW, because they'd probably be considered main event quality wrestlers there, except for the fact that their tag team formed and they've remained in the tag team division. You don't see Kenny Omega challenging Jon Moxley for the world championship at the same time. They are solely fixed on those titles right now, and they fit the division properly. Hence what I was saying with Rollins and Murphy. That team worked. But Rollins and Strowman, not so much. There's been several times that this has happened over the last few years. I can't think of how many times where two wrestlers are in a singles feud and they will have to be forced by the GM to team up and take on the Raw Tag Team Champions and then just defeat them for absolutely no reason, not necessarily winning the titles, but you know, say Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre were in a feud. I'm just randomly throwing together two names here, don't take it too seriously. They're having a feud and they are forced to team up and take on, say, the Viking Raiders, who are the Raw Tag Team Champions. They go on to defeat the Viking Raiders together despite the fact that they're feuding, and then their feud just continues, whereas the Viking Raiders here have taken an unnecessary loss, which makes them look weak. And it really shouldn't be that way because these are two singles wrestlers that absolutely hate each other, are teaming up to defeat the tag team that needs the wins in the tag team division, that properly competes in the tag team division and works together and is considered the best tag team on that show. They're just taking a loss and being sacrificed to elevate a main event storyline, which it really doesn't really do much for the storyline here, does it? Just a random match for filler on that week's Raw to keep their feud going, but not to really do anything amazing with it. It's just happened so many damn times. But regardless, in conclusion, I'm a fan of tag team wrestling. I absolutely love it when it is done right and when the tag teams are properly featured, and I really do want to see that more in WWE, and I hope we do in the near future. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about the state of tag team wrestling in WWE over the last few years. Leave a like on the video if you did enjoy. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Turn on notifications to never miss an upload, and I will see you all very soon with a new video. Thank you.